Hello, this is John Pernay from Ion Annapolis and the Maryland Crabs podcast with a special election crab cake episode for your listening pleasure. In June, we held a mayoral forum that was very, very well attended, and you can, and quite honestly you should, go listen to that one, and you can find it on themarylandcrabs.com. But today, we bring you the voices of all of the other candidates running for Alderperson. Well, all but one of them. Republican candidate for Ward 1, Larry Clausen, did not respond to any of our requests. While we would have liked to have presented a forum or a debate with these 17 individuals, it just wasn't practical. So, we took it to the road so you can learn a little bit more about each of them in order to help us all make an informed vote. All of the questions were essentially the same to keep it fair, and we are releasing them all at the same time. Tune in and listen as your candidates answer some crucial questions about the city of Annapolis and how they plan to handle it should they be successful. Thanks for listening, enjoy, and be sure to vote. And we're back with another Aldermanic candidate interview, and this time we're in Panera up at the Festival at Reba, and we're talking with Shaneka Henson. How are you?
I'm great.
Shaneka is running as an alderwoman for Ward 6, and up until probably about 6 days before we recorded this, it was supposed to be a three-way race, but now it's only a two-way race between Shaneka and Dewan Gay.
Right.
Ward 6, for those that are listening, primarily is the upper side of the peninsula of Eastport. Madison Avenue comes over. It includes Robinwood. It includes, up Bay Ridge Avenue, a little bit Forest Hills, a little bit of Hilltop or Tyler. I guess it's Tyler at that point.
That's right.
I know Robinwood's sort of carved out of that little.
It is
that little niche there, as well. And you are a lifetime citizen of Annapolis.
That's right, with the exception of college in Pennsylvania for a while.
Where'd you go to college in Pennsylvania?
I went to Central Pennsylvania College up there in Harrisburg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, let's get right into it. You've been campaigning for quite a long time.
For the longest time of anyone in the race this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen the signs, the large billboard right there on the corner of Hilltop, Milkshake area, or whatever it is.
Hilltop and Primrose, yeah.
Okay. What have you seen as you're walking around the ward, and obviously you are a resident of the ward, and what you've heard from your neighbors and your friends and whatnot, what is the most pressing issue that's facing your ward today? It might be two issues, but what's everybody really upset about and really concerned about in Ward 6?
Ward 6 is a very diverse ward. We kind of have everything that you could have in Annapolis in Ward 6. Ward 6 has Bay Ridge Apartments. Ward 6, as you said, has Robinwood. It has Eastport Terrace, Harbor House. We have Spa Cove, which is condominiums. We have August Woods, which is townhomes. We have apartments there with the Reserve at Quiet Waters and then Forest Hills. We have single-family homes with Colony Hills. We also have some duplex homes with Connolly Drive. We have the homes on Primrose as well. We have a little bit of Tyler Avenue with the single-family homes. We also have the homes that are there on Tyler Avenue as well, leading up to the Eastport community as well. Down there in Spa Cove, we have the Spa Creek as well, so we have the waterfront property there. So it's very diverse in Ward 6. So there's kind of no singular issue. Each kind of part of Ward 6 has their own issue that's pressing to each part of Ward 6. But Ward 6 does have the uniqueness of being the largest concentration of public housing of any of the wards in the city of Annapolis. So that's one of the stronger concerns of Ward 6, just because of the concentration of public housing there. And the needs of the public housing residents are very pressing because in some ways they're very vulnerable because they are at the mercy of the housing authority of the city of Annapolis. Their needs are very directly related to what the housing authority is doing and what the housing authority is doing for and with them. So I would say that with the representation of that ward, that what's going on there is kind of the most pressing concern there in Ward 6. The hot topic there is what's going to happen with the future of public housing in Annapolis. The remodeling or redevelopment of those properties, it's what's on the agenda item there. It's either for the public housing authority, what they're talking about now is redeveloping them either through a public-private partnership, which amounts to the privatization of public housing, or keeping it a public interest while redeveloping it through some public funds there. So that's what we're looking at now. The housing authority seems well convinced that they won't be able to get redevelopment funds from the federal government, and so they are moving moving forward with the plan to enter into a public-private partnership, but there's been some issues with that in the past not being a good deal for the residents. And so the residents are very concerned about their ability to re-enter into a community if there is a public-private partnership. So the residents are nervous about what that means for them.
Looking on a larger level, and you're also going to be a representative of the city of Annapolis, not just Ward 6, for obviously your primary focus there. Do you find that the concerns of Ward 6 sort of mimic the rest of the city, or does the city have some other hot topic issues that you're hearing about that the city is mostly concerned with on a citywide basis?
Definitely. I think that one of the hot topic issues that was close to Ward 6 was also reflective of some of the larger issues in the city. Just outside of the ward was the Eastport Shopping Center, and the Eastport Shopping Center drew a lot of attention here recently. The proposed redevelopment there of the shopping center, and that being stalled by the planning and zoning issues that happened there, I think were indicative of some of the challenges that have happened with redevelopment here in the city.
Leads me right into the next question. You must be like reading my notes here, but what is your position? And I know Ward 6 is fairly well developed. There's not a whole lot of area to develop there at this point. I know there's a couple pieces down on the water and whatnot, but what is your stance as an Aldermanic candidate, as an Alderwoman candidate for development in the city? Where do you think we stand? Do you think we're doing an okay job, or?
I am in favor of redevelopment as opposed to developing areas that are not already developed. I do favor redeveloping areas that are already developed. So if we have the choice, I like the plan of redeveloping an area like the Eastport Shopping Center. That's an area that already has some development on it, as opposed to going into an area that is already an area that is a forested area and then taking that for a development. I think that we also have to, if we're going to do that, clean up our planning and zoning code, because we don't want to dissuade people from developing in the city of Annapolis. We want to attract development here. So if we're going to do that and we're going to take a position that favors redevelopment, we definitely have some work to do with the code so that once people come here, we do have a clear path towards doing that.
You've been following city council, you've been following the administration for a while, and you better come up with an answer on this one. But when you look back in the last 4 years, what has this council and administration done that you look back and go, oh, there is just no way I would have done that? That was the most boneheaded thing to think of. What have they done? And you can go with one or two.
I think the council could have given a lot more pushback on the budget initiatives that have come out every year. I think that we have had budget initiatives that have increased our city's bond debt. We have taken on a lot of bond debt to do regular, ordinary things. We've taken on bond debt to fund ordinary expenditures, such as operating expenditures, not bond debt to do things such as capital improvement projects. I think that we have not had any funds that set aside things to do. One of the things that I would like to do with our city budget is have some line item in there that accounts for the redevelopment of our public housing properties. If our city, our housing authority, is well convinced that the federal government is not going to send any funds to redevelop public housing, I think that our city has a duty to make sure that we contribute in some way to the redevelopment of public housing. Those are city residents. They are living here in the city of Annapolis. I think there are ways that we could contribute to that. I see clear paths towards doing that in the city budget, and I think that our city should be restructuring that. I think that some of the fee schedules in our city budget, they need some improvements. I think when we look at the recreation, just for one small example, when we look at the recreation and parks budget or the recreation and parks fee schedule, a family of 4 membership for the Pip Moyer Rec Center is $643. $643 that must be paid all at once. That's cost prohibitive for a lot of the residents in Ward 6. There is no sliding fee scale. There is no opportunity to pay that incrementally. It must be paid all at once. And every single member, or at least a majority, has voted on that every single time the budget has come up. I think that's been a missed opportunity to structure that in a way to make it more inclusive. So I think that the council has missed chances to make sure that we've opened up the resources of the city to the residents of the city. So I think that's one thing that I would have liked to see them structure differently, is more pushback on the budget. To one, make sure we don't increase the bond debt, and 2, to do something different with our city's fees.
Running as a Democrat, I don't see a Republican sweep on the council and mayor, nor do I see a Democratic sweep across the board. Could happen, but I just don't think it will. How do you plan to work across the aisle, to reach across the aisle to work with a Republican counterpart on the council or with a Republican mayor?
I think that relationship has been built by the current council and the current mayor. I think there's already some groundwork there. I feel like they had a good working relationship, the mayor and the current city council. I'd like to continue that working relationship that they had. I think that I am a reasonable person. I think that I will approach everything from a place of listening to good logic, good reasoning. Hopefully the mayor that sits in the seat there once we have the next election will be a person that does that as well. Any Republican that's elected, hopefully they will be as well. I'll keep an open mind, and hopefully any Republican that's in the mayor's seat, if that's how it turns out, or in any council seat will as well.
You talked about the capital budget and bond debt and stuff like that. Some people have made an argument the city is in really financial straits, and others are saying, okay, everything's great and hunky-dory with the city. It's probably somewhere in between, but let's just sort of imagine for a minute that the city is literally on the verge of bankruptcy. We just don't know what to do. Or where do you, as a alderwoman, look to start? What's on the table to start to right that ship from the city absolutely sinking into insolvency?
Well, I think anytime that you're in a place like that, you have to prioritize. And I think that it would be the job of the entire council to sit down and take a look at things and to prioritize. I think you start with your essentials, and those are those public services that we all need. I think you prioritize starting at your police department, your fire department, looking there first. I think that each department in those things, starting your city fire and your police department are of course at the top of your departments that you need, but then you have all your departments in the city. You have your recreation department, you have your planning and zoning department, you have each of the city's departments. But you look at each of those departments after you've prioritized them and you say, how can I lean out each of these departments? You prioritize and then you lean out each of those departments to say, where can I cut cost here? But I think that that's a tough thing. And sometimes cities face those challenges where you have to take a tough look at each department and then you have to say, where can I cut cost here? Sometimes there's just essentials that you can't cut down, and sometimes there are times where you can cut down. But that's why when you're in times like we are now in the city of Annapolis, where you are not in financial straits and you may have the opportunity to have an extra $330,000 in the budget, that's why you don't offer the tax cut. That's why you save those funds for a rainy day, and that's why I would not be in favor of that tax cut that's on the table.
You're volunteering to be an alderwoman, and I use the word volunteering because you don't, I'm sure you're not doing it for the $13,000 that they offer. And certainly it's probably below minimum wage by the time you figure out what it is. But how much time do you actually figure this job is going to take on, a weekly basis? Or
when I first started to I first had the first thoughts of running for elected office in Annapolis, I started to attend the city council meetings, and that was probably about 2 years ago now. And so my first thought was, is this a job that I want to do? And then it was, is this a job that I can do? So I started to attend council meetings. And so I started to attend council meetings and then some of the community meetings that I would attend if I were a council person, to see how does this fit into my life, into my home life, into my work life? How does this fit in? Reading the council agenda, reading the different things that are on the table. How can I fit this into my life? To kind of give me a feel for what the workload was like. Is this something I can fit in? So the first phase was, is this something I want to do? And then it was, is this something I can do? And so before even putting my name on the ballot, I had to get over the phase of, is this something I can do? And then I was well convinced that there was the time there in my life to take on that challenge of this, is this something I can do? So there is the room there in my life, in my time, to squeeze that into the life that I do have. I think that when you're passionate about something, you find the time to do something.
How do you plan to keep your constituents up to date?
I think the first point of contact and the best way, the most effective way I've found to do that is to be in contact with the community leaders in each community. I think that the community leaders in the different neighborhoods are the best point of contact for the people in those neighborhoods, that they know their friends, they know their neighbors, and they know the concerns and needs of their friends and neighbors. And they are the best communicators of that, and they are the best points of contacts for reaching those friends and neighbors. So for me, that's been the most effective way to reach out to people. I think also social media is a powerful tool, and that's been a great way to be in contact, stay in contact with people, to learn their needs, challenges, and concerns. I think also if I were elected to office, I would love to be able to hold town hall meetings, things like that, where I invite people out to come together and not just get to know me, but get to know each other. It's a very diverse ward, so I would love to be a connector where people can get to know their neighbors that perhaps aren't their neighbor in their particular neighborhood, but their neighbor from across the street or down the street.
All right, let's get a little bit philosophical here. They've said for many, many years that we have two Annapolises, and primarily it tends to be, on the opposite ends, you've got the wealthy white folks that live in the waterfront mansions, and on the other end, we have low-income African-American, Hispanic, Latinos living in subsidized or public housing. There is a gap here. I think everybody can agree with that. How do you work to close that? And it's not something that's, as we've seen in the school districts, it's not something that's solved overnight. It's not something that's solved by one alderwoman from Ward 6 in 4 years or 8 years, but there are little baby steps that can do. So what do you think that we need to do to work to bring that gap a little bit tighter together to be a one Annapolis that everybody really, I think, truly wants?
I think that there has to be exposure and opportunities. I think that lots of times folks who live in the one Annapolis have no idea that there is the other Annapolis. I think that lots of times people who live the wealthy, affluent life don't know that there are people who don't have those opportunities. It's not that most of them are not compassionate and are unsympathetic to the people who don't have those opportunities. I really believe that lots of them are not exposed to the fact that some people live with such limited opportunities. And as we've seen, sometimes when they're exposed to that, they have compassion and they reach out and they do what they can. I think that sometimes people who live such a limited life and don't have opportunities and live in poverty have no idea that some people in Annapolis have private beaches. Otherwise, if you did, then it would drive you crazy if you understood that there are people who live in walking distance from you who have such a wonderful life. So I think that cross exposure of opportunities would be a wonderful thing to have people do. I think that if you cross expose, though, then you have to have cross exposure of opportunities. It can't be that I expose you to this wonderful life that's down the street and then I give you no pathway of getting there. It can't be that I cross expose you to this problem and then I give you no method for helping to donate, helping to give back, helping to give someone a bridge. So I think that cross exposure, and then I think also opportunities for each of them to give, to be invested in the lives of the other. I think that also we have to totally restructure the way that we have public housing in the city of Annapolis. And I think I say public housing because that's where lots of the poverty is in Annapolis. We just aren't a place that has, like maybe Brooklyn Park in Arundel County.
Yes.
Brooklyn Park has lots of poverty there that is not public housing. But in Annapolis, lots of the low income is concentrated in the public housing. But I think social science is well settled on the fact that concentrations of poverty just is not a good thing. We cannot have places where all that a person sees from birth to end of life is just low income.
All right, now I can't vote for you because I don't live in your ward, but that's okay. I'll give you a chance to pitch me. Why is Shaneka Henson running for Alderwoman in Ward 6? What makes you think you're qualified for that? What do you bring to the table, and what are you going to do for the city of Annapolis when you get the job?
I am running for Alderwoman in Ward 6 because I first lived in Ward 6 when I was a young single mom. I lived in Bay Ridge Apartments in Ward 6, and I was a college student, and I was living there with my son. I went to college in Ward 6. I graduated law school living in Bay Ridge Apartments, and then after I was an attorney, I moved on. And then I came back to Ward 6 again when I returned to Annapolis. I then returned to Bay Ridge Apartments to visit, to check out what was going on there. And all of my other neighbors that I lived there with, it looks like they hadn't been given that same opportunity to move up and move on and move out of there. So I kind of looked around to see what opportunities were there for people to kind of go to college, live their dreams, move on out of there. And I didn't see those other opportunities for people. I kind of complained about it for a while and thought, man, there's kind of no way to get out of here. So I realized I could complain about it, or I could be complicit in it, or I could change it. So that's when I decided to put my name on the ballot and run for office. And so that was my journey to running for office here. I believe that I'm the best choice for Annapolis City Council for Ward 6 because I have put the time into figuring out and familiarizing myself with what the issues are here. I have put the time into understanding the way that our city government works and how I could make it better for the residents of Ward 6 and for all the residents of Ward 6. For the residents of Ward 6 that had the challenges that I had, for the residents of Ward 6 who don't have the challenges that I had. I've lended myself out as a listening ear for people. I've given myself the opportunity to understand what the issues are for folks who are on one side of the ward, on the other side of the ward as well. I think that I am a person who can understand what the best way is to go forward. I think that I am going to take the time to do things the right way. I think that if given the opportunity to be a leader for Ward 6, that I would take the job seriously. I think that the time is now to have change in the ward, and I think that I would be very honored to have the support of the residents that I have been working with for 2 years.
Well, where does somebody learn more about you?
I have a Facebook page. It's on Facebook, Shaneka Henson, Ward 6.
And that is, if you're typing in there, it's S-H-E.
Fair question. Thank you for asking. It's SHANEKAHENSON, Ward 6.
Okay. And Facebook is the best way to get in touch with you. You've got other contact information. And
Facebook is the best way.
Very good, Shaneka Henson. Thank you very much for taking your time out of your Sunday afternoon to talk to us. Make sure you check out Shaneka's Facebook page if you're in Ward 6. And most importantly, whether you're in Ward 6 or not, get out on September 19th and vote. It's so important. It's a very important election. And if you ever thought your vote didn't matter, just ask the current mayor who won by 59 votes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Answers from a candidate or alderperson in the city of Annapolis. Did they answer anything that was on your mind? If not, make sure you get in touch with them so you can make the best vote come September 19th in the primary election. Be sure to keep up to speed on the election at eyeonannapolis.net and also on the marylandcrabs.com. It is an important election this year, so it is so important to get out and vote. And speaking of voting, the primary is on September 19th and the general election is on November 7th. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And after the primary, look for an announcement from us about a mayoral debate between the two survivors. Just like the forum in June, Eye on Annapolis and the Maryland Crabs will bring this to you, but this time it'll be structured more as a debate rather than a forum. Thank you for listening to this special election crab cake episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Maryland Crabs podcast. We have fresh stuff that drops every Thursday at noon.